This week in comic books and books, Free Comic Book Day was a hell of a lot of fun. It has since come and gone. We're going to talk about that for a moment. We have more new X-Men books announced, plus a Fallout Boy comic? Yeah, kind of. Let's get into all of that. Hello, nerds, and welcome to this week's episode of the news as it pertains to comic books and books. No discussion of current storylines, story arcs, or any of those kind of details is going to happen here per se. I am, after all, a one-man organization and can't read every book that comes out and report on it and any of the news therein. But we can talk about new announcements and major changes as they pertain to any of the publishers that we follow, or just generally nerdy literary information in that sense. So let's get into all of that, shall we? And also, if you dig what's going on here, there is a much more up-to-date and possibly relevant, because it takes a second to get these sections posted up, so probably much more up-to-date version of the news in long form I like to call The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, which you can find linked in the description as well as at the end of this video. That show covers many more points of interest in the nerd community, in the pop culture community at large, and so definitely go check that out. Now let's get into all of those literary notes, shall we? So, Free Comic Book Day was May 4th. These are the comic book shop that I go to only was allowing people to take 3 books. So these are the 3 that I got. There were at least 3 or 4 other ones that I was trying to get my hands on as well. Honestly, was trying to go to, there was a new comic book shop apparently that was listed on Google, but when we went to the address, was nowhere to be found. So unfortunately, I could not get my hands on any more than the 3. It was May 4th, like I said, it was this past Saturday. It's always the first Saturday of May, so hopefully you made it out to Free Comic Book Day. If you did, let's have that conversation down in the comment section. What books did you get? What books did you miss? Were you hoping to get, etc., etc.? Are you excited for the potential for where that book that you did get your hands on is going to lead? All of the things. Super excited to hear your experiences from Free Comic Book Day. And if you did not get out and make it out to your local comic book shop, maybe, just maybe, they have a couple leftovers, because the comic book shop I go to generally, they usually have some stuff left over from the previous year that they then put out on the table. The current year, this year, that was not really the case. There wasn't really anything, at least nothing worth reading, that they had leftovers from last year. So yeah, let me know your experience with this year's Free Comic Book Day, because I thought it was a whole hell of a lot of fun, but I usually do. All right, so our next piece of news here in comic books and books is X-Men from the Ashes, the reboot, the restart, I guess is probably more appropriate in comic books. The restarting the X-Men story, because it's kind of breathing new life is the idea here. We previously got 3 books announced in the new reboot from the Ashes. Those 3 books previously, just to keep you up, are the straight up X-Men, we have Uncanny X-Men, and then Exceptional X-Men. The 2 books that were just announced this week are a new X-Factor book and a new Wolverine book. These 2 new books are going to be launching in August and September, respectively. I chose the Ultimates stuff in my Free Comic Book Day, but there was a book that was dealing with the From Ashes stuff. I would have rather got the Star Wars book that I did. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's in the Free Comic Book Day book just yet leading into the From Ashes stuff. I will soon, so if you want to be the one that enlightens me, or I'll enlighten myself, then absolutely take to the comment section to do that. But I'm very intrigued by the idea of X-Men being good again. So if that does not happen, we will probably talk about that briefly in the future, but if it does happen, we'll talk about it a lot more.
Subscribe. That is all.
From there, we have one piece of regular news to go over, and that is Pete Wentz. Pete Wentz, bass player, songwriter from Fall Out Boy, he is doing his own comic book. The name of his comic book is called Dying Inside. It will be co-written by Jonah Klein. It will have art from Lisa Sturl, who previously has worked on Witchblood and Squad books. There is going to be a unique take on how they do this book. It's being released through Vault Comics, and the end of each issue is going to have a QR code that you can scan. That QR code is going to take you to playlists curated by Pete Wentz, which will include original music plus poetry from Pete Wentz. What is it? It's original playlist curated by Wentz alongside so no original music. I misspoke. Just original playlists from Pete Wentz. Yeah, that seems a little silly to me, but I mean, it's worked for rock stars in the past. You've got, what's his name from oh Lord, Black Parade, My Chemical Romance. I can't think of his name right now. Totally brain farting. But his book, he wrote on the Umbrella Academy. He's done a couple other things. Gerard Way, there we go. He's done fairly well for himself in the comic book sphere. I don't know that Pete Wentz as exactly the target audience that MCR had. Fall Out Boy is a little bit of a different thing. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get into speculation for things a little bit later. That is, though, what we have for comic books and books, except for suggestions for comic books and books. This week we have Wolverine Deluxe Edition. I just picked mine up while I was at the comic book shop, and so this is what I'm going to be reading this week. Hell yes! This is the Chris Claremont and Frank Miller arc that defined the character. Everything we love about this character, everything that every nerd, that is exactly what Wolverine stands for. That is exactly who Wolverine is. This is the book that put that into motion, that defined all of those things. So this is your assigned reading for the week. It shouldn't take you but maybe a couple of hours. And yeah, the definitive Wolverine Deluxe Edition. Go pick it up. It's like 20 bucks at the comic book shop, and it's going to be an epic read. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.